what are common stigmas of Islam and mental health. And again, this is very broad, and it's just things that I've probably noticed, seen, read, but there are a lot more. So mental health can be seen as a taboo subject in Islam. It's not very spoken about. And I think that organizations like the Center on Muslim Wellbeing are trying to break that, and it's great. It's really good. And tonight we're trying to do that as well. As I said, we're trying to start a discussion on breaking a taboo subject, even though, interestingly, the Quran does refer to mental health, which I'll cover later on. Concerns with family, social standing may label the disclosure of mental health illness as shameful. So I know that probably not as much here in Australia, but it's definitely something back in Eastern societies that mental health can be seen as something that's shameful if you're labeled, and it can be damaging towards the family, and then it can cause, again, issues in the community. Another misconception in the Muslim community is that mental health is associated with being non-religious or not religious enough. And this is actually something I personally, in my profession so far, I've seen. So I've had some clients who have Muslim names, and they didn't bring up their religion in my kind of therapy. And just when I briefly spoke to them, I'm like, hey, brother, are you actually Muslim? Because I was very interested. And he's like, I actually am. And I'm like, oh, well, Assalamu alaikum, I'm Muslim myself. And he's like, okay. And I actually asked him, is there a particular reason we haven't discussed, religion in kind of your day-to-day life? And he said to me, well, it's not something that I want to bring in, and talk to professionals about, because it's just not something that we talk about. And it really hit me. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that was a concern. And I just wanted to bring that up because it did strike me on the day. And I actually spoke to him about it later on. And then now every time we meet, we actually say Assalamu alaikum, which is really nice. Normative culture belief in black magic and jinns. This is probably an area that I don't know too much about, but I know that there is a lot of, or there is an idea or following about black magic can be linked to mental health concerns, or someone who's under the black magic or under, jinns. And again, I probably won't cover too much on it just because I don't know too much about it. Mental health issues are tests from God, can drive a wedge to treatment. So the reason I mentioned this one is that as Allah has said, that this world is a test, and a lot of the inflictions that we face can be a test, and they can be a make it or break it kind of situation. And some people do say that mental health can be under that same test. So if you feel depression, it's a kind of a test that you need to pass. And yes, that is true. But in saying so, that can drive a wedge to getting treatment, because then you say, oh, well, I'm not going to go and seek help for this because I'm meant to pass this on myself, which probably drives me to that point I said before, where there is treatments available and you should seek treatment, as mentioned by the hadith. And non-Muslim mental health professionals are going to impose their belief on you. I think that one is, again, a very interesting point, because being a Muslim health professional, I get the opposite, where I get non-Muslim clients who come to me and go, this guy's going to teach me about Islam. And then they meet me and they're like, this guy's completely Australian. So it's very interesting, but it does happen. So I think on the latter, going to meet a non-Muslim profession as a Muslim, there can be a barrier saying, will he understand me? Will he understand my culture? Will he understand the context? And I think that as a psychologist, personally, we get taught to be culturally aware. And we're getting a lot more professional development towards understanding different religions, not just Islam, but other religions out there. And I would say personally, I'm doing a lot more efforts to understand other religions as well, just to help my practice. So I think that this is something that we're trying to break as well in the field. So the phrase is often heard, and this is, again, derived from my clients. And this is probably, I would say, maybe over the last 2 weeks. So very fresh and happens all the time. But I've heard, again, clients say, you need to toughen up. So someone's come to me, male or female, and they've said to me that I've had, let's say, depression, or felt depressed for maybe 15 years. And I say, okay, have you sought any, mental health kind of support in that time? He or she would say to me that, look, I haven't come because I just thought I need to brush it off. I thought that I can get over with it, or I can just toughen up, really. And I asked, okay, is that something that you've been taught or something that you've heard? And she said, my whole family, generations past generations, just say, mental health's not real. If you're physically sick, go to a doctor. Otherwise, just toughen up. And I hear this on a day-to-day basis. Second one, how's talking going to help? So this is actually very interesting because what happens is a client will usually tell me this at the start of a session. And they'll say, look, how is talking actually going to help me? And they're very standoffish. And I know that what's going to happen is the opposite in this session because I end up changing my perspective. I'm like, I'm not going to take that structured approach. I'm just going to have a chat. I'm going to have a chat about, and just be genuine. And after that session, they come to me and they say, wow, though we didn't get through much in one session, just by talking to you, I feel so much better. And I'm like, it's the power. It's the power of just talking, opening up and seeking support. It's really important. People are going to think that you're crazy, or people think that I'm going to be crazy if they're seeking mental health support. Again, something I've heard very often. And it's there in society. It's, again, probably not overtly there. It's probably covertly there. I've had many hardships in my life, but you don't see me complaining. Again, something that's very linked to the, I just need to toughen up. It's not that big of a deal. You're ungrateful. So you're ungrateful if you actually have mental health concerns. You know, you're in a first world country. That's something I always hear as well. And that's linking to the whole, my problems are not that big of a deal. You know, if you go to Africa or you go look at the Eastern, you know, kind of cultures, they're facing a lot more problems and they have wars. And over here in Australia, you know, I have no Wi-Fi and all of a sudden I feel, you know, depressed. It's not that big of a deal. I think one thing that's really important is that the lockdowns itself, just the last week in Gippsland, we were locked down. And I have a lot more clients who've said to me that, look, I don't feel that I deserve to be here because it's not that big of a deal. And I say that that's not true. Very similar to what I said before. The fact that you feel different, the fact that you feel you can't function means it's important. It's important that you came and I'm glad you came. And the last one, you need to man up. Again, very, very simple, but very, very impactful. And it drives a wedge to getting someone to actually seek mental health support. Steps to dealing with stigma. I wanted to break this down to as a therapist, as a community, and as an individual. So as a therapist, personally, what I do and what I'm trying to do today as well is promote seeking mental health support, creating awareness of mental health issues and why help is important. Dispelling negative stereotypes by educating people. Again, I'm just doing very briefly today. There's a lot more phrases, a lot more stereotypes that come up, but just ones that I wanted to mention and wanted to, I guess, dispel or disprove. And being mindful of the words you use and avoid insensitive and hurtful words such as crazy, loopy, psycho, loony. I think there's a lot of someone who gets diagnosed, for instance, or gets labeled, they feel that they're, you know, crazy, loopy, psycho, or loony. I think that's the opposite. What I always say to my clients is that if there's ever a diagnosis made, what we should focus on is the treatment. You know, that's all that matters. Now we can focus it on particularly depression. What's the treatment for depression? It makes it easier for them. And that's why we do it as allied health professionals or GPs do it. And that's the only reason. It's not to class you in any particular way. As a organization or a community, I think this is probably where the Center of Muslim Wellbeing has done a great job so far, and they're doing it every day, is to educate. Educate is the most important thing. And again, as I said personally, I don't know too much about Islam. I will be very honest. And that's why here today, I'll be very happy to answer any questions, make corrections if I can, because education is really important. The only way I can learn, the only way you guys can learn about mental health is through education. So utilize peers in mental health services, education, and advocacy. Share their stories in the community as a part of education programs. Participate and lead programs and workshops. Provide leadership opportunities in your organization. And again, the Center of Muslim Wellbeing has done a great job so far, and I'm really fortunate to actually be part of a workshop to really help with my perspective of mental health. Protest. I think that's something that's come up recently, especially with COVID. A lot of protests are happening. And again, it can be a positive or negative kind of platform, depending on how you use it. But it's a great way to break down stigmas in particular. And contact. Contact's really important. Meet someone. Hi, my name is Kyra and I live with mental illness. And I'd say, look, hi, my name is Muhammad. I'm a psychologist and I have mental health issues. And I'm very happy to say that. And it's very true. And again, it's just being open about it, being honest, because being honest is key. And challenging stereotypes. And research has shown regular contact with people with lived experiences has the strongest and longest lasting effects on stigma. And that's really important. Meet more people who have concerns and break down that barrier is key. And that's what I really want to drive home. And that's what we do through education, what we do by meeting more people. And as an individual, who has mental health concerns, how do we break stigma? How do we break stigma that our family might be saying, or the community might be saying overtly or covertly? I think the first thing is, regardless of what your family, friends, or what the community might be saying about you who has mental health, seek help, seek treatment no matter what, because the people that you're going to go to seek help for are the people that want to listen and want to help you. So don't be reluctant to admit when you need help. Don't let the fear of being labeled prevent you from seeking help. Don't let stigma create self-doubt and shame. As I mentioned, there's public stigma and there's also self-stigma. And don't let, self-stigma stop you from actually seeking help. Don't isolate yourself. Don't equate yourself with your illness. Instead of saying, I'm anorexic, say, I have anorexia nervosa. And more importantly, I do so-and-so to make sure I find treatment. Join support groups that help reduce stigma by educating people who have mental illness, their families, and the general public. And I think that what's really great today is we have the GAMCI, and I think GAMCI will definitely be running more workshops such as this one today. But it's a great network. It's a great place to talk about, again, anything really. They're here to help. Get help at school, talk to teachers, professors, or administrators about the best approach and resources. And speak out against stigma. That's probably the biggest one. I think everybody who's attending today has a duty. And again, I'm not putting this as a definite, but we all have a duty, really. And I definitely have a duty after today, is to keep talking about this topic. It's really important, and that's the way we break it down.